1942.
Welcome back to Fireside Chats, week number 17, and a happy anniversary to SS Gam Gam. We're going to kick things off, of course, with a story about Grandma's wedding. So tell us about the private wedding first.
Oh. Well, let's see. Stan and I met while we were both in college. I met him the first year I was at Mount St. Mary's taking pre-nursing. He was in his second year, I think, at Loyola. He'd gotten a scholarship through a friend. And I was over helping with their ham dinner, which the girls in the college would go help the boys' college, and the boys in the college would go help the girls' college. And so they told me to stand by the door and direct people into the line for the ham dinner. So I was standing there and directing people, and he comes in from football practice, and he had 5 o'clock shadow, and his hair was all wet and curly from his shower. And he sees me and he walks over and says, "You're supposed to get my dinner." And I looked up at him and I said, "Do you see that line over there? You just go right over there and they'll give you your dinner." And I turned and I walked away. He said, he looked after me and thought, "Boy, she'd make somebody a nice wife." But he said, "I got another girl to bring me my dinner." But he didn't forget me, because next month we're selling things at Mount St. Mary's, and I was sitting next to Sister Mary or somebody selling things, and he came over, and he looked like a movie star. He was had all shaven, had a beautiful tan wool jacket on over his brown slacks and tie. And he looks down at me and he says, "Well, you wouldn't get me my dinner, so I guess I won't buy anything." Well, I bit my tongue, because what could I say with Sister sitting there? So I just sort of smiled, and he left. He remembered me, though. Well, he found out that his Jim Sullivan's girlfriend knew me. So he kept me in mind, and then later on he asked for a blind date with me. Well, I didn't remember who he was, so I said yes, because whatever her name was, I liked her, and blind dates were fun. Well, it was a formal dance, I think at the Oaks Club in L.A., and he was late. And if I hadn't been on a formal, I would have left the house. But I was. And 2 other guys came by and wanted me to go somewhere. And I was like, "Oh, well, I got this formal on and can't go anywhere now." And then they left. But pretty soon, knock, knock, he came to the door. Well, I didn't recognize him, but I did see he was very handsome. And he apologized, and he said, "I'm sorry, I'm late." He said that the baseball game with UCLA ran late, and I really apologize for being late. I said, "Well, that's all right." So then he took me to the dance, and we had a really good time, and I enjoyed his company. And so then we became friends, and then every once in a while he'd ask me for a date. And so for the next 2.5 years, we dated on and off, because both of us did not want to be tied down. I was going to be a nurse, a flying nurse, because then if you wanted to be a stewardess, you had to be a nurse in an airplane. And I was going to travel the world as a nurse, stewardess. And he wanted to be a teacher and a coach, and he wanted to get his degree in education. So we just dated on and off for 3 years, but we got to be good friends and really liked each other. Well, then came December 7th, 1941. Well, that was a big shock. And when he came to pick me up that December 7th, for a day, I think, I said, "Did you hear the news?" And with a twinkle in his eye, said, "Oh no, what?" Of course he heard it, because all the guys at Loyola all volunteered the next day. He volunteered for the Navy, and so they wanted officers, and he was by then in his senior year and would graduate in May. So they said he could finish and graduate and then go into the officers corps. So about the same time he asked me to marry him, but he said, maybe we better not get married right away because I might not come home in one piece. And I looked at him and I said, if you think you've chased me for 3 years and you're not going to marry me now, you're crazy. So he wasn't supposed to be married because he was going to be on a 90-day wonder, an officer. I was in nursing school and I wasn't supposed to be married. So that summer in August was my vacation, and we decided with Father Malone from Loyola, our friend, that we would be secretly married, and he said he could marry us at St. Mary's, I think it is, in Oxnard. So therefore I sat down and wrote handwritten notes to just real close friends, just the family, and told them that we were going to be married and invited them. And so Uncle Wick and Aunt Maud, who lived in Ventura, said they would have the reception there. So off we went. Yeah, we're married at St. Mary's in Oxnard. And then we had one night honeymoon, and I think it was Santa Barbara built one, I'm not sure. Then the next day, Aunt Maud and Uncle Wick were going on vacation. So they gave us the key to their house to stay there for another 2 days. So we did. Then we went back home to LA, and Stan had to leave on the train that next day. So I drove him with his mother and father to LA Railroad, and we all said goodbye. And then I drove his folks home in his car, and then I drove back to the hospital the next day, went back on duty. And nobody knew I was married there, of course, just only the family. And so until he got his bars and became an ensign in November, he made it. And the only trouble he had was trying to guide a boat by the stars, because when he volunteered for PT boat duty, one of the things they asked him was, well, do you know anything about little boats, small boats? And he looked him right in the eye and said, I'm from San Pedro, everybody there fishes. But he was in coal mines. He'd never really been in any boat but the boat to Catalina in his life. But he knew he didn't want to be on a battleship and salute the admiral every time he passed him. So they accepted him. But he had a hard time trying to sight by the stars how to get across that ocean. And one night, he thought, I've got to pass that test or I won't make it. And he stayed up all night studying. And finally, he got it. So the next day, took his seat in the classroom. He was first out of his desk. He'd finished the test. As he walked by the commander, he looked at him, and because he knew he'd been having trouble, and he saluted him and said, I know it now, Commander. And he did. He never got lost on that big ocean. And so anyhow, about that time, I could get permission to get married too. So I went to Sister Helen at the hospital and told her my story. Didn't tell her I was married. Just asked her if I couldn't have permission to be married. And she gave it. And I went back on the train to Chicago, and he met me. And we went on the train to Rhode Island, the PT base, where he was to learn all about them. We stopped at Niagara Falls on the way and got to see it. Then on to Rhode Island, and we were together from that November until just about April, when he came home from the Brooklyn Navy Yard where he was then. getting the boats ready to go overseas and said, I won't be home tomorrow. So then off he went to the South Pacific. He was gone for 13 months the first time.
So after you got permission, did you have a second wedding?
No, because we'd already been married by Father Malone in the church, and so we didn't. And of course, nobody in L.A. knew, they weren't in Chicago. Because I told her I was going to get married in Chicago. I had a little white lie. She might have known anyhow, sometimes. Father Malone might even have told her. He was a great friend. That was a very nice ceremony at St. Mary's. And I have a picture of me with holding my veil. Where I go in, I'm standing and I'm like, am I doing the right thing? But I did. And it was a very nice home reception at Aunt Maud and Uncle Wiggs. My mother had bought a ham, and Mum Dee and Aunt Maud had done other things. And my mother had bought a beautiful baby cake and a wedding cake. And there's pictures of that, too. So it was a very small wedding with only about 3 of my girlfriends there and families. And it was a very nice wedding. I still have my wedding dress to this day. There, I still have it.
Think you could fit in there?
I don't think so. Half of me. There it is.
There it is. And you bought that in 1942.
Yeah, $25. And it still looks pretty good. Well, it'd be nice if one of my granddaughters wore it. That would be neat. You still got the slip. They had pretty good material in those days. 75 years, that's not bad.
What's the blue cloth you wrap it in?
Because those days they said wrap it in the blue cloth. So I dyed one and wrapped it in the blue cloth and put it in my hotel. Yeah, Jacqueline wore it at the play they put on at our 50th wedding anniversary. Only she put it over black tights. But it was a funny play that Sally made up.
Who was at the wedding?
Well, my sister was my maiden lady, and Stan's best man was Marty Hatterline, who was 6'6" and a basketball player, and his roommate at Loyola. So there was just the 2 attendants. Very small wedding, but very nice and very personal. Came down the aisle, and my mother sang Ave Maria before I came down the aisle. She was a singer. And then I came down for the wedding march, and we were married. So it was a very small wedding and very intimate and very nice. Oh, this year it's 75 years we've been married. I guess it lasted.
This has been week number 17 by the fire with SS Grandma. See you next time.